Hey there, welcome back to Parley. This is a show where you folks get to enjoy some podcasty like discussion about topics that fellow community members of yours have paid to get me to talk about. This one is the part 2 of Lordrusty's Coffee Talk Parley, so there's no prompt for it. I'm just going to explain what is going on, and I'll link the part 1 if you would like to watch it, which I would probably recommend you do. This will be a parlay with a ton of drink recommendations in it. Well, actually, not a ton that I actually recommend, but I will be talking about a lot of beverages. I was asked to make the drinks from a game called Coffee Talk. My understanding is that this game is basically like a heart-to-heart sort of interactive novel where you also nominally serve beverages like cafe fare. Here are those beverages, or at least the ones that I was given for this parlay. And the idea was that I was going to try these and then tell you what I thought about them. Now, that's well outside the scope of a normal single parlay request. So Lordrusty agreed to have it consume 2 parlay requests, and it required my approval. This is the kind of thing I would do anyway. It's pretty easy for me to incorporate that into my, the next 2 months. And indeed, it was pretty straightforward, but I would usually reject a request of this size. This is just one that I like to say yes when I can, and I felt like this one actually was pretty easy to do. I'm gearing up for my own drink-related project anyway, so I've either tried all of these or I commented on them in the part 1 video and said I don't really feel like I need to have this again. I'll probably quickly just say, I talked about this in part 1 for those, and there are a couple more, only a few more that I decided not to make. I thought about it and realized I'm not gonna have anything to say about this. I haven't literally had that combination of ingredients, but I don't really have anything to say. And a few where I almost said that, but I'm happy that I didn't. So yeah, lots of really great drinks here. I'm gonna try to do the ones I think are actually good first. But before that, I actually have something more pressing. I said I would try a few of them on camera. So obviously that would be very complicated. That's well outside the scope of parlay requests to try them all on camera. But I did actually bring the last 3 to try with all of you. Okay, so we're going to start with those. The first one is Black Magic. This is in the coffee column. And it is meant to be basically black coffee, black magic, black coffee, with mint and honey. I have some questions. Now, obviously, a lot of limitations of this list of drinks come from the fact that it's a game, and I presume that the game mechanic is you mix 3 different ingredients to produce the drink. It's not always clear, it's in fact almost never clear in these drink recipes whether you're intended to use a sweet version of that ingredient. So when they say mint, do you like mint leaves, mint extract, mint infused oil, a mint syrup? Like those are very different things. What kind of mint, etc. That's a big thing. And another big question is ratios. That's a huge thing, obviously, but it might be bigger than you think. Like adding, 3 things to a drink, recipe development takes a lot more effort than just this flavor combination is good. Especially for beverages, I think. I think for food, it's easier to have an intuitive eye for how much of the thing is going to be good. And incorporating ingredients can sometimes be weirdly easy because you could just kind of flip them all around together and you're going to eat it. So, if you put a mint leaf in, you're gonna taste some mint. I mean, there are better ways to incorporate mint into the meal, don't get me wrong. But you can just eat the mint leaf, you know what I'm trying to say? Whereas in a drink, it's like, how do you do that? So I have tried to develop like a cursory recipe for each of these, but do not expect exact ratios for all of them. That's just way outside. I mean, that would take like a year to do that for all these drinks and have a good recipe for each of them. That would take like a long time. In some cases, I looked up a recipe and modified it. In some cases, I have a procedure, but I don't know what ratios I'd like. Just anyway, disclaimers over. Let's drink some drinks. So Black Magic. I chose a medium roast of coffee. They're small, but I drink a lot of drinks in the day. So this is a medium roasted coffee. It has a balance between the roast and the beans. So it has some acid, some fruit, some sweetness, some chocolate, some kind of ashy roasty flavor. I tried to get something that is a relatively typical coffee. Although, if you've only had very commercial coffee, this is probably lighter than what you're usually drinking. If you like specialty coffee, this is probably darker than what you usually drink. I tried to get something that is truly objectively in the middle. I'm not sure. Maybe a different coffee would be better. And what I did for this was I made the black coffee, and then I shredded a bunch of spearmint leaves. That's what I have. I have a spearmint plant growing hydroponically. So I picked some of those and I shredded them, and I poured the still pretty hot, freshly brewed coffee on top of them and let that steep as if I was making tea for, a while, like 10 minutes. And in my experience, it doesn't take too long to extract mint, but extraction time is something we're going to come back to later in this parlay. And then I put honey in it. And now we're going to drink it. How much honey did I put in it? I don't know. Like a teaspoon? I don't know. Ooh. I don't know about this one. There's something. I'll be honest, I've had bad experiences with honey before, getting the metallic notes out. I like honey in some things. It's not like I just dislike the flavor of honey, but there is a harshness. I don't think spearmint is the mint you want either. It's just what I had. This is not tasty. Um, that's another thing, right? That doesn't mean this flavor combination is bad. I have no doubt that you could make this taste good. Honey and coffee, you could figure it out, I think. And then mint and coffee, well, maybe like a really chocolatey coffee, the right coffee, maybe. I thought maybe an acid forward coffee would be interesting, but I kind of backed off of that. I'm glad I did that. I think that would taste even worse. It tastes a little sour, like a little harsh. For your sanity, I did check, like, this coffee tasted like good plain, I obviously had some of it just plain black. And it tasted good. I did a good job. It's not terrible. If I had to score this, I would say it's a 3 out of 10. It's not disgusting, but it's actively bad. Like, I don't want to drink more of it. Um, I am I'm weird, and I actually kind of do want to drink more of it just because the flavor is so odd. It's like a fairly novel flavor combination. I think maybe if you really want this to work well, very dark honey, not that floral honey. I used the kind of floral honey. Maybe that was a mistake. Peppermint. Maybe use peppermint extract, and don't put in very much of either of those things. In a big cup of hot black coffee. That might work. Not super, super scalding hot. If it doesn't taste good, I would try adding a drop of saline solution. That might help with both the honey flavor thing, and in more roasted black coffee, it often tempers some bitterness if it gets out of control. But sometimes it destroys desirable bitterness. So anyway, yeah, a no for me. Moving on, we have Shin Genmaicha. Shin Genmaicha. Shin here meaning new, I think. Shin and Japanese in general, because there's not a lot of sounds in Japanese. Short words in Japanese usually mean many very different things. But here I think Shin is meant to mean new, Genmaicha. Genmaicha is green tea that is traditionally cut with toasted rice, traditionally as a way to extend the tea. So if you were not very wealthy and you wanted to make your tea stretch longer, it tastes good if you put like half toasted rice in it. And so they did, but it actually just tastes good. And so people just have that nowadays. This one is genmaicha with ginger and cinnamon. Now, I gathered that it was not sweet. My guess was that it was not like ginger and cinnamon syrup. I did make ginger and cinnamon syrup for this little project, but this one I just did ginger and cinnamon spices. So here it is. It's a nice color. The cinnamon, when you do what I'm about to tell you, really extracts a lovely hue with the ginger. So I think this is a pretty color. It looks a little nicer in person. It looks like a rich, flavorful drink, and I think it is. Okay, and it's good. It's too cinnamony, but not bad. So here's what I did for this, and for a lot of drinks that have the You make coffee, tea, hot chocolate, whatever, but then you infuse something in them. This is what I usually did. Take the, in this case, ginger and cinnamon stick and simmer them with the amount of water you wish to brew the tea with for a while. If you want to extract ginger and cinnamon very effectively, you're gonna, with the whole spices, of course, you're gonna want to boil them or simmer them for much longer than you'd want to brew tea. You can't just put them with the tea or coffee and leave it. The coffee, maybe, but you wouldn't want to simmer it. You want to, what they call decoct, make a decoction of it. A more extreme version of making a tea out of them is how I think of it. Again, I would simmer them for maybe 15 to 30 minutes is what I did. And then I let that water come to temperature. For this tea, I used 80 degrees Celsius water to make some genmaicha I had with the water that I had simmered those spices in. I think that's the most straightforward way to do it. Especially if you make coffee or most varieties of tea, you won't even need to wait to use the water. You just simmer it to infuse the herbs and then immediately dump that on your tea and brew it like normal. Pretty easy. And then you just clean the pot, dump the herbs out of the pot. Or if they get into the coffee and tea while you're brewing them, big deal. You'll strain that out anyway. So yeah, pretty easy. And it's good. The roasty flavor and a little bit of sweetness and savoriness from the genmaicha, from the toasted rice, and the green tea, the little herbaceousness and a bit of sweetness, like buttery sweetness from the green tea, is very able to stand up to the ginger and cinnamon, which are a nice pair. I want to note that in this parlay and in Coffee Talk, you can see that when spices are added, it's almost always only listing ginger and cinnamon because it's a game and they didn't want to include every single spice if you're only going to use it once. But for many of these drinks, you really would, and I did, use other spices. For some of them, it only mentions those two, but you might just think of it as, Christmassy baking spices, insert here. I'm not necessarily convinced that it should be ginger, cinnamon, and nothing else. For this one, I actually do think it should be ginger, cinnamon, and nothing else. It's good. There's another drink in this project that is ginger, cinnamon, and green tea that was a pleasant surprise that I'm looking forward to getting to. But yeah, that one, that's good. I like that. Finally, we have Chocobi Miruku. Miruku here. I think they're doing a Romanji version of like a Japanese pronunciation of the English word milk. That's janky. It's simply hot chocolate made with honey, as far as I can tell. This is delicious, of course. I had already done this. I have a very close friend who already loves this. It's hot chocolate made of honey. It's not going to taste bad, but how does it taste? And it's pretty good. It's surprisingly different. It doesn't really taste like honey exactly, but you get a lot of the floral aspects of the chocolate without making it taste lighter. It doesn't taste like, it's still a very rich drink, I guess. Yeah, it's really good. Totally make your hot chocolate with honey. Now, we're going to talk more about hot chocolate during this parlay because actually I think that's one of the places you'd go awry here. There's some really good ways to make hot chocolate and some less good ways to make hot chocolate, and I have a really good way. You should buy something that they call in the market Bensdorp cocoa powder. I would get Dutch process. Bensdorp cocoa powder. Various places will sell it. It has a very high fat content for cocoa powder. So you'll put it in the drink and it still has a lot of cocoa solids. It has like 25%-ish cocoa solids, which is a lot for cocoa powder. And that gives you a lot of the richness if you don't put milk in it, but I would recommend that you do put milk in it. And it generally just adds a lot of chocolate's mouthfeel. It will taste like you melted milk chocolate into the drink instead of a lot of cocoa powders can taste a little, well, powdery. And this isn't necessarily bad, but I think a lot of them read a little bit more like a darker chocolate as well. So I highly recommend that. All I did to make that one, the Chocobi Miruku, I took a heaped tablespoon, I don't know, the right amount, the amount I want, because I've made like 10 hot chocolates in this project, of the Bensdorp Dutch cocoa powder, and a good amount of honey, and it was probably like 6 to 8 ounces of milk that I heated. I used whole milk. You use whatever you want. Oat milk would be great here, I think. And also, if you like almond milk, I think the Bensdorp cocoa powder is going to help a lot because almond milk has less of that texture. Adding some fat from the Bensdorp cocoa powder will really help with that. I don't think almond milk would taste bad here, but I do think losing some of that richness, that's what a lot of people want from hot chocolate. So the Bensdorp cocoa powder would come in clutch. The other way that I will be employing to make hot chocolate throughout these drinks is to use a chocolate sauce, which is surprisingly easy to make quickly. Solid chocolate, cold water, about 1/4 the weight of cold water to the amount of solid chocolate. And then you very gently heat it, not enough to bring it together, just to warm the water and, mix the hell out of it. And it will beautifully become a chocolate sauce. That is another effective way to make really good hot chocolate that won't, split or anything. You could try to just melt your chocolate in the milk. You could heat the milk and the solid chocolate on a stovetop until they're incorporated. I think there's something about you want to start it cold, but anyway, whatever. I'm actually going to pause here and go finish my beverages, and then we'll talk about the rest of the drinks. So, time travel on. I return considerably more hydrated, and now we're going to do the rest of the drinks that we didn't just do or that I didn't talk about in part one. Cool, and there's quite a few of them. I want to start with one of the ones that I was the most excited about, but it's going to make a point that I really want to establish before we go on, and that's STMJ. This is the last one. It's over here. My camera's mirrored all over the place, so, it's there we go. This one says that it is egg, milk, ginger, honey. STMJ is an acronym for this drink's name, ingredients in their native tongue, which I think this drink is from Indonesia, I think. I'm sure a lot of places. So it's egg, milk, ginger, honey. Pretty sweet and served warm by finishing with hot water was the way I usually saw it made. Now, how you combine the egg, milk, ginger, and honey could vary a lot. Something that might sound a little weird to some of you folks is this idea that you're just going to plop an egg into like this warm milk, ginger, honey thing. Like milk, ginger, honey, all right, fine, I guess. But you just put an egg in, Here is the version that I liked the most. And I really, really liked this one. This was by far the most impressive drink of this group. This is maybe top 5 drinks I've ever had. I'm not sure I recommend making it though. It was a lot of cleanup for. There's probably a better way to make this, but here's a good way to make it that will taste very good, and then you'll be on board with wanting a way to make it that tastes like that, but doesn't take this amount of faffing about, right? I took an egg yolk, no white, and I creamed it with the honey that was going to be in the drink. So pretty good amount of honey and an egg yolk. And I took a beater, just a cheap electric beater, not a stand mixer or anything, but you could use a stand mixer. You could use your hands. You'll just get tired. And I beat the devil out of it for a long time until eventually, it took a long time. It was like 5 to 10 minutes. It lightened in color and became fluffy. So you incorporated a lot of air. That air is going to stay. It's a very thick mixture that's going to be able to hold on to that air. So you've made a kind of custard thing out of an egg yolk and the honey. And then that went into the warm milk that I wanted with some ginger steeped in it. So you could simmer the milk and ginger. You could do that. I don't know if I'd do that. I think what I did probably was just use the ginger syrup that I made. Making a ginger syrup for this project or this list of drinks, if you want to make a lot of these or you just want to make drinks, is great. That's way easier than having to incorporate a bunch of other ways. And most ways you would use ginger for these drinks, you wouldn't mind it adding some sugar. Make a very strong ginger syrup, and then if you need more sugar, you can just put in more plain syrup. And if you don't, then no problem. For this, I probably just used the ginger syrup, and again, I made it very strong. All I did to make that was grated a ton of ginger into equal parts sugar and water, and I heated them gently until the sugar dissolved. You don't have to heat it that much. It's surprisingly easy to get the sugar to dissolve, but maybe keep it hot for, a half hour. This, once strained, will yield a very, very gingery syrup that you can keep in the fridge for, a few weeks. Good stuff. And yeah, then you're just gonna incorporate your egg yolk honey custard thing into your warm milk with ginger syrup, and then cut it with some water, hot water, if it's too thick. You could use sweetened condensed milk, but you really want that egg honey thing, and then the ginger, if it's syrup, is going to add the sweetness. So that's all weird. But traditionally, I think this often involves sweetened condensed milk. I did use sweetened condensed milk. I made a version like that too. It was hard not to make it too sweet. I just had to put a lot of water in, but they were both really good. If you look up recipes for this, you should be able to find variants like that. Exactly how much of these things, I really wouldn't worry about it. Just start with one egg and then, a good amount of honey and see where that takes you. Now, again, it gets a lot of dishes dirty. I care a lot about this. I don't really care that much about the history of the drink or the traditional way to make the drink. Those things don't make it taste better to me. I know that might sound arrogant or irreverent, but I personally think that it is really worth not disrespecting those things, but maybe focusing what little attention we have nowadays onto the things that are really important for these drinks to actually happen in your life, which are the recipe and the method. If you don't have a good method for making this, you will, like me, make it and think it's amazing, but then never make it again. And I think this drink is the best example of that. For a lot of these, honestly, it's really easy. If you were to say to most of the drinks I'm going to now talk about, oh yeah, that's like too much work or whatever, that's lazy. Like, you should just suck it up and make the drink because it's tasty. But this one was kind of a mess. I'm definitely on board with there being a better procedure for this. But literally most of these are like, you make tea or coffee and put a sweetener in it. Like, just make tea or coffee and put a sweetener in it. It's not a big deal. Most of these took like 5 minutes. You just have to have the ingredients and have a good way to make that, tea or coffee, which especially for tea is not too hard. I'd be happy to talk about that if people are interested sometime. I've talked about it before and I will again. But anyway, I just want to say, STMJ, it was amazing. I loved it. It was kind of a mess. And then I don't want to waste the egg white. You could just make an egg white and eat it. You just cook an egg white in a pan. You could make a cocktail with it. If you wanted, make a whiskey sour and put the egg white in. Make any sour and put an egg white in. Don't make a whiskey sour. That's just the traditional one. I mean, make it if you like it. But you could make a daiquiri or a margarita and put the egg white in as well. Shake it. You'll have a different texture than normal delicious daiquiri or margarita, for example. It's a fun thing from, I believe, Kenji, actually, is where I got this idea. Make something like carbonara, another dish where you want the egg yolks and a few of them, but not the egg white, and use the egg whites to make a cocktail to go along with it. Something like that, like a little pairing. There's other ways you could use the egg whites, just the egg whites. But that's an example. I had a lot to say about this one because, again, I kind of want to establish some things for the drinks going forward. But yeah, it was a fair amount of messing around, separating just the egg yolk. I guess I'd have to try it with the egg white and see how different that is, but there's some chemistry there that I don't fully understand. Like, I bet it would indeed be meaningfully different if I didn't separate out the yolk. I will try not doing that, but I don't think it would be that simple. A final note before we move on, some of you might be worried about salmonella. In my part of the world, I have evaluated that is not a meaningful risk, and I am in very good health. But if you're not, or you're not in a part of the world where that is evaluatable as not much of a risk, yeah, this one, maybe pasteurize your egg. You can do that. Look up online how, you boil it at a certain temperature. I forget exactly because I don't do that, but you can pasteurize the eggs such that they can be used. You can use the egg yolk, but it's not going to give you salmonella if you'd like. That's a direction to explore. I admit I don't know that much about that because I'm not concerned about that. Okay, moving on. This one, the pronunciation, I don't know, tarik. This one is, let's see what it says about itself here. I'll read their blurb about it. Tea with milk, made by pouring between two containers. Is this that one? Let me just make sure. Yes, right. Pulled tea? Is this the one that's pulled tea? Yes, I believe it is. So this one is pretty simple. You're gonna make, maybe on the strong side, black tea. You don't have to make black tea a weird way, really. Just maybe put in like 33% more than you normally would. Or, measure, put in I don't know, whatever you're doing, like a tablespoon or 3 grams per 250 milliliters or something, and put in just like a bit more, just eyeball putting in a bit more. I think having it on the strong side is nice. And then all this is you're gonna take that, you'll brew it, you have your black tea, you put in a bit of sweetened condensed milk, and then you just aggressively roll it, pour it back and forth between two containers, and it very quickly becomes very frothy. It develops a froth reminiscent of maybe beer or a really extreme cappuccino or something. Without much effort, by the way. I thought it would take longer and maybe be harder or something, like you'd have to pour really high. I did read a little bit that I'm interested in the cultural heritage of these drinks. It's just not as important to me as you actually making them and trying them, by the way. Apparently, this is often like a street food, and there's a bit of performance to it. So the idea that you pour it really high and it's a bit of a show is possibly useful to attract tourists, for example. But it also incorporates air into the drink and it cools it to a good drinking temperature quickly. I have very low heat tolerance, so I already roll lots of drinks that I drink just because I have no patience. I want to try them. When I don't have any patience, I roll them a bunch to cool them down quickly. And I often make my drinks in a way where there's two containers anyway. Here, you're also doing it to very easily incorporate the sweetened condensed milk. And again, it creates this great froth. It's a little hard to describe. So there's a texture component there. Yeah, it happens more quickly and easily than I thought. It's good. It's like a milk tea thing. Obviously it's good and it's not that remarkable tasting. I do think the texture is great. I'm not sure I would do it necessarily this way. Just like maybe I'll roll drinks that have these ingredients. Like when I make a milk tea, I will maybe roll it from now on. That's nice. That's a good trick. Would I specifically do, wow, I've been on that page for a while. Would I specifically do just these two things? I think you could embellish a little bit more. But yeah, it's tasty. A nice quick sort of snack drink. Interesting side note for this one. I tried shaking the tea in condensed milk. I put on hot mitts and I took a cocktail shaker, like a Boston shaker, the 2 metal tins, and I put the drink in and I shook the hell out of it. Don't do this. If you don't use hot mitts, you might burn your hands. And when the cocktail shaker isn't cold, the pressure gets kind of weird and some physics stuff happens. I don't know if I'd recommend that you do that, but I did it. And the foam I got from doing that was not superior to rolling it. So the rolling is, for this combination of ingredients with these viscosities, very effective. I was really surprised. I thought surely shaking the bejesus out of it would be more effective. For coffee, that is more effective. I've made exactly this, but just with coffee instead of tea. Something surfactants in coffee. I kind of thought of tea as being the same way, but I don't know. Anyway, so that was interesting. I don't think I have anything else to say about this. I did try it cold. That was boring. I would drink it hot. I thought the cold version made the tea flavor unable to compete with the sweetness. It was just kind of boring. It wasn't like gross or anything. It was just like, why? Yeah, I think that's it. I would, again, make the tea a little on the strong side, but you don't have to do anything crazy. You don't need to make an ultra concentrated tea, not like using an espresso for a coffee drink. Just make the tea a little stronger than normal. I think that's worthwhile in this drink. Cool. Moving on. Next one is Jahi Tubruk. I know I'm probably not pronouncing these things that perfectly. I apologize. They're from all over the place, which is awesome. Has been one of the fun things about doing this. Where are you at? There it is. Coffee with pieces of fresh ginger steeped in it. This was interesting. So you could, again, just take your fresh ginger pieces and simmer them for like 15 to 30 minutes, and then use that, it's already the right temperature water, make your coffee, and then there you go. And you don't have pieces of ginger floating in it. Maybe that's traditional, but it's inconvenient. So that's what I did. It was okay. I didn't think it was that much to write home about. To be honest, I didn't really like any of the drinks that were you just add a spice to black coffee. I tasted the one that was like mint and a bit of honey with black coffee earlier. There was a few other drinks that were kind of like that, and I wasn't impressed by the flavor of any of them. But I did learn some stuff. For this one, I did try putting the fresh ginger pieces into the ground coffee. In other words, I just made coffee as normal, but I just put the fresh ginger into the, brewing basket thing that I use. I use a clever dripper, and I put the piece of ginger in there. As expected, that doesn't extract for long enough, and probably not with enough heat. The amount of time you'd want to brew coffee. You can leave your coffee brewing for 15 to 30 minutes. You can do that. It doesn't taste bad like you'd expect. Some people prefer how that tastes. It doesn't massively over extract. That's not how extracting coffee works. But I don't think you extract the ginger very adequately. I think you really need sustained simmering water for that. That's just been my experience. So I would take the time to simmer the ginger separately if you want to try this one. It's not hard. You just have to wait a bit longer. But yeah, I don't really actually have anything to say about the flavor. I did add a couple of bar spoons of simple syrup, it says in my notes, and I preferred that. I thought that did kind of wake up the ginger flavor a little. And at that point, I would just put a little bit of ginger syrup in my black coffee. So maybe try that. I didn't like this one that much, but again, this is a drink from a very different culture that may make it away, and with a quality of ginger and type of coffee that are way different than mine. It might be really good. Like, this is not a definitive review of this drink. You can't do that with this little input, right? But the way I made it, it was unremarkable, but like it was fine. I think for the right coffee, putting some ginger syrup in my coffee might be fine. We're going to come back to that a little later. Like, if you just do that and make the coffee cold, that's a cafe shakerado. That's great. Like, that's good. Make that for sure. Make that. I'll tell you to make that again during this parlay. But yeah, it wasn't like bad or anything. I just didn't have much else to say about it. Bitter Heart, Spanish Sahara, and Spiced Lady. These are all hot chocolate variants with like something in them. So basically, hot chocolate with ginger syrup, hot chocolate with cinnamon syrup, and hot chocolate with chocolate sauce in them is what I decided to do. It's not really clear if Bitter Heart contains milk. So here's the situation. The other two, so Spanish Sahara is the one with ginger syrup. Well, that's how I did it. And Spice Lady's the one with cinnamon syrup. I just did the thing I mentioned before for the Chocobi Mirku. I took my Bensdorp Dutch cocoa powder, you remember that, and I mixed it with my warmed milk. And then the sweetener for the drink was, the syrup instead of honey or, whatever, sugar, something. I really liked the one with the ginger. The ginger syrup and the good quality cocoa powder really awakens a lot of floral notes in the cocoa powder. That I liked. I really liked. I doubt it would do much if your cocoa powder isn't pretty good, because it won't have those tasting notes in it. But if you buy good quality cocoa powder, you get a reward if you make this kind of drink, I think. That was tasty. I think that was the best hot chocolate variant of the group for me. The cinnamon syrup gets a little lost, but it was good. I just didn't notice it that much. Maybe I put in too much cocoa powder. A lighter hot chocolate with the cinnamon syrup might have been really nice. My partner tried the Spanish Sahara, the one with the ginger syrup, and said, quote, "Why do people like ginger?" So yeah, I mean, it tasted like ginger, and she doesn't like ginger. So I don't know, man. Like, if you don't like that, definitely don't make that one. I'm not sure. You'll need to have a strong syrup. And I'm not sure, it says in my notes, I'm not sure I would make the syrups for that drink. It's more like if I had them, I would like put them in your hot chocolate, like for sure. I think hot chocolate is a little monotonous by itself. Maybe blasphemy, maybe. But using a variety of interesting sweeteners, especially when making it this way, is easy and pretty fun. Like, I had a great experience. I'm drinking a ton of hot chocolate now. I bought a lot of that cocoa powder, by the way. It's buy it in bulk. It's not the cheapest cocoa powder, so saving money by buying it in bulk is great. And if you'll probably love it and be flying through it. Now, in my notes, I did something kind of weird. So I tried the bitter heart. I tried cutting out the milk. I tried to avoid milk. So what I did was I made a dark chocolate sauce and I put in the 2 syrups with hot water. So if you look at bitter heart again, it says chocolate, ginger, cinnamon. It's in that hot chocolate category where everything is hot chocolate, but it wasn't clear to me. It's called bitter heart. I don't know. To me, it was like, if you put cinnamon and ginger syrup, just cinnamon and ginger syrup, and then it's normal hot chocolate, I basically just did that, and I know that's going to be good. So I thought it would be more interesting to make something that is like a black hot chocolate with cinnamon and ginger syrup. So that's what I did. But it wasn't going to have the fat from the milk. So I didn't use the Bensdorp cocoa powder. I used chocolate sauce, like I mentioned earlier in this video. I took some solid chocolate that I like. I used the darker chocolate, and I put about 1/4 of its weight as cold water. I microwaved it very briefly, like less than 10 seconds, not nearly enough to bring it together. It looks like it's not enough heat. And then I stirred it aggressively stirred it. And it becomes this silky chocolate sauce if you do it just right. Then I used that as the base. I put ginger and cinnamon syrup in that, and I cut it with hot water to be like an Americano, but made with a strong chocolate thing instead of like an espresso, basically. And then sweetener syrups. It was okay. If you want like less heavy chocolate, there's someone that drink is for. I thought it was like not remarkable, but it's a role player. You know, you want to drink chocolate, but you don't want dairy, or you don't want it to be really heavy or something. It was, good. There was really nothing bad about it. I would definitely use the chocolate sauce instead of cocoa powder. The texture that added from the fat in the chocolate really made a difference, even if you have the fatty cocoa powder. The cocoa solids in the chocolate were a pretty big deal. So yeah, that was good. If you make bitter heart and don't like it, another plug for saline solution. If you haven't yet made some saline solution, hopefully you will at this point in the video. Take 20% salt and 80% water by weight. Dissolve the salt by shaking the bejesus out of it in a, dropper bottle or something. And then when you think a drink that you make is a little too bitter, just put a drop of that in, stir it briefly, and taste it. It can be magical in the right drink. I think the only disclaimer is that a lot of the time you're fixing something that the root cause is an error in the drink. Like, you could just make it not taste that bitter. And so I wouldn't add it to the recipe. It's just a way to salvage a version of a drink that you make too bitter, maybe. If for some reason that's a situation you're in. But yeah, I wouldn't often incorporate it as an ingredient for chocolate and coffee drinks. I think a lot of the time either you could eliminate that bitterness if you don't want it, or the bitterness is desirable and you just don't like that variety of that thing, probably coffee, which is not bad, but I don't think you'll get the best drink by including saline solution in your routine. Nevertheless, it's a really useful tool to have around. I use it, a couple of times a week, and it's never going to go bad. It's salt water. It's a brine solution. Cool. Moving on. We're getting through them fairly quick. That's about 1/3 of them, and wow, look at the time. All right, so we'll speed it up a little bit. Gingerbread coffee, and I will have less to say about these. Gingerbread coffee. This one said to add cinnamon and ginger syrups to roast forward coffee. That's how I interpreted it anyway. A lot of these in the first Parley video, I said I was going to kind of zhuzh up a little bit, like maybe put whipped cream and garnish them and stuff. And this really got me in touch with how I don't usually like garnishes. I also think that basically everybody else who covers drinks on the internet does do those things. So there's really not much point in me doing them. They're going to do it better with more budget and a better camera. I would rather talk about the things I feel like they neglected, which are the practicality of the drink and the stuff I've been talking about. So I didn't do any of that stuff. Gingerbread coffee. Yeah, it was all right. I put cinnamon and ginger syrups in roast forward coffee. It was kind of whatever, But again, this is kind of just the cafe shakerado if you make it cold, and that's really good. I love that. Make some on the strong side coffee. I actually would make, if you can, an espresso or a concentrated coffee, or melt a cometeer pod, not sponsored, and cut it with only like twice or 3 times its volume in water. Not more like 4 times its volume in water, which would be more like an Americano or a filter coffee strength. And then add your syrups. A little saline solution is good there too. And shake the bejesus out of it in a cocktail strainer with some ice. That creates a nice fluffy drink. Sometimes I like to put only a little ice in and shake it until the ice is totally dissolved, so that I can free pour it and save a lot of the foam rather than straining it. That's tasty. I love that. This drink is that, but warm, and I didn't think it was worth making. I think you should just make that, but cold. That's a better use of those ingredients, in my opinion. But yeah, with milk, you just got a good latte, but we don't really need to talk about that. That's like almost probably the most of you have had that drink. So I don't think there's a lot to say about this one. But yeah, somebody might like it. I'm not really that sold on black coffee with some spicy stuff in it. I want like milk hot coffee, milk black coffee, black milk coffee. Let's move on. The Grinch. A little unclear. This one says green tea, ginger, cinnamon, and it said green spicy and not everyone's cup of tea. Now, I interpreted this one as being cinnamon and ginger syrup, and I assumed that it was a warm drink. I did not put a candy cane in it like they picture. I put cinnamon and ginger syrups in green tea. I brewed some pretty good quality green tea, some Japanese delicious green tea from an 100-year-old plot on a guy's, home farm that I got from Japan. And it was very good tea, and it tasted, I thought, really good with the cinnamon and ginger syrup. It's more than the sum of its parts. It tastes like something other than just sweetened good green tea with cinnamon and ginger. It had a kind of composite flavor. That to me is a mark of a really worthwhile drink, so I really liked that. My biggest note for this one is that most commercial green tea doesn't taste like that. So if you use like a green tea bag from the store, it does not taste like the thing I used, and I don't think that would taste particularly good. I would go get some good quality green tea. It's cheaper than what's in the store, and it's much better tasting. It's more ethical. The people are getting a better cut. This is a great reason to go buy some nice green tea. You don't have to buy anything crazy. Don't buy anything crazy. You're kind of diluting the flavor a little bit by distracting it with some other things. A medium grade green tea that's still like a nice whole leaf green tea is more than enough, probably overkill anyway, but it's not expensive and it tastes great. So this is my ad for doing that. I do not like any of the green tea I can buy without using the internet. So maybe I'm a snob. I'm not trying to say that if you like it, you're bad or wrong or low class. I am saying that it tastes different enough that I'm not recommending this drink if that's your ingredient. I don't know if that would be good. I don't think it would be. I think that the tannic flavor, the kind of, grippy flavor that you get, when tea's kind of overbrewed and you get that like flavor from tea, you get that from steeping it too long, but you also get that from the tea leaves being in small pieces, which is how they often are in commodity grade, your grocery store tea. That can be okay, especially with black tea. I actually use black tea like that for most of these black tea drinks, and is perfectly serviceable. But with green tea, I think it's a lot more noticeable. There's a much bigger difference to be had. The black tea is roasted, processed in such a way that I don't think that makes as big of a difference. You can get really good black tea, you absolutely can, but I don't think it's as critical. I would more strongly recommend cracking. You're not even spending more money for the good quality green tea from a variety of sites that I said I would put in the description of. I think I did them in the first parlay, but I'll also do them here. So if you want like 12 sites that you can buy tea from, go pick up some green tea from one of those and make this. It was good. This was also one of my favorite ones. Great reason to get the ginger and the cinnamon syrup. If you only make the ginger syrup, which I've been higher on in this set of drinks, I would still make this. That would probably still be good. You could just put a cinnamon stick in it and use it as a stir. You'd probably get a light cinnamon infusion and aroma that would be nice with this drink. Enjoy your green tea. add for green tea over. I actually did write ratios for this one. I probably used about 150 milliliters of green tea and like a half ounce total of syrup, a quarter ounce of my ginger and a quarter ounce of my cinnamon syrup. So 150 milliliters of green tea, maybe a half ounce total syrup. 150 milliliters is like what, 3/5 of a cup or something? I don't know. I know my units are all crazy, but that's how I make drinks. I don't know. I'm weird. Black lemon, acid forward coffee, steep a lemon twist in it, and I tried adding lemon juice. The flavor wasn't good. It wasn't bad, but it wasn't noteworthy, I don't think. Adding pieces of lemon peel to my acid forward coffee didn't make it taste that lemony, but it did taste different, and I think it's because the lemon peels are absorbing some of the things in the coffee. And I liked it. I thought it was good. There's something here. This is not usable as a drink recipe, but there might be a technique in here. Putting lemon peel or some kind of pith in your coffee. It was weirdly kind of good. It had I hesitate to use this word, but it had kind of a smoothness quality to it. I liked that. I will be coming back to this. I don't think it tasted like much different. It wasn't bad or good. I didn't like lemon juice in my hot coffee. Kind of unsurprisingly, my black coffee with just lemon juice, I didn't enjoy that. It wasn't terrible. I like acid, but I'm not really sure what to do with the like putting lemon peel pieces in your coffee, and it tastes different. But I will definitely be coming back to that. It's an interesting technique. I don't know where to apply. Good stuff. Very happy I did it. Just not much else to say. Shai Adeni. This is a Yemeni milk tea drink with, the way I looked it up anyway, condensed milk, sugar, cardamom, cloves, cinnamon, nutmeg. This is a big reason to infuse those spices the way I described earlier. Take your couple green cardamom pods, crush them. Just take the flat of a knife and smash them. Throw them in the pot with the water you're going to use to make the tea. Take, 2 cloves, crush them with the flat of your knife, throw them in. Cinnamon stick, break it into a few pieces, chuck them in. I used Ceylon cinnamon, but whatever cinnamon, I just thought that would go better, and I'm happy I picked that. I actually put some ground nutmeg on top because that's what I had, but you could put some nutmeg in the pot. It's actually not easy to get pieces of nutmeg. Maybe just put some ground nutmeg on top. Anyway, and then cardamom, cloves, cinnamon. Yep. Simmer those for 15-30 minutes, brew your black tea with that liquid, pour that onto some condensed milk, and put some nutmeg on top. Yeah, a very nice milk tea. I'm not very easy to impress with these milk tea variants. I think a lot of the spices are just kind of like, but why this? Like, why does it need to be this spice? I liked this blend a lot. In fact, this is my favorite chai variant I've ever had. That's not a very high bar for me. It's not a drink I love or hate. I'm just kind of on it. But I will be making this again. I liked it. It wasn't crazy or anything. A relatively low cleanup way to make a pretty complex drink. The spices blended pretty well. It was good. I would roll it like the pulled tea from before, the tea tarik from before, where you roll it between the two containers. Do that to this. I don't see why not. It's basically just that plus some spices, which is good. Great. Another big winner from this set of drinks. We're coming up in the end now. Russian tea. This is a South United States based beverage. I don't know why it's called Russian tea. Again, that's not my focus here. I'm sure there's some interesting or idiosyncratic reason why it's called Russian tea, but it is an American South beverage that is traditionally an instant drink made with like instant tea powder, which I guess is a thing. Like matcha, but black tea, I guess. I don't know. Lemonade mix and Tang. If you're outside the US, Tang is an artificial-ish tasting orange drink mix. So the idea is that you can make kind of an instant mix of this, and then it's like a tea punch, and you can have it hot. It's served hot. Now you're thinking, wait a minute, Zandy, you just said powdered tea mix, lemonade mix, and Tang. And then it's got like cloves and cinnamon. What? No, why? Stop. You would be correct. I truly despised this. Now, I made it with lemon juice and orange juice and, tea leaves. I just did I boiled the cloves and cinnamon, simmered them for 15-30 minutes like we've been talking about. I used that liquid to brew black tea, and then I put in an amount of orange juice and lemon juice that seemed to me to correlate to the amount of orange and lemon mixes that people were putting in. So I fiddled with my own recipe a little bit, and I'm not telling you that because I thought this was not worth making at all. It's amazing for how little orange juice is in this, how much it tastes like just warm orange juice. It's maybe a 10th orange juice, and I swear to you, it tastes like warm orange juice. Huge disappointment. It's not a good use of those spices. This drink will make you say, I want my cinnamon stick back. So definitely a no from me. It's not bad. It's just like, why though? The last thing I have to say about this one is there's a lot of good punch recipes. There's a lot of good ways to make like a punch or like a warm punch even. There are many, many really interesting punch recipes. This is not a category of drink I dislike. This is the worst one I've ever had. And it was my recipe, sure. I did get it inspired by other recipes I looked at. I did fiddle with the ratios too. I put a little more lemon in, I put a little more orange in, I put a little more sweetness in, I put a little more tea in. I fiddled with it a bit. I just don't see this combination of flavors being particularly inspired. Again, it's not bad. It's just like it's one of the higher effort drinks on this list, and it's not good. Like it tastes like warm orange juice. Shots fired. If you like this drink, I think it's gross. It's just warm orange juice. Sorry, it's okay if you like it, that's fine. I strongly believe you would enjoy other punch recipes even more. So I guess that's good. Hopefully you have other good drinks ahead of you. The only two things left are dark chocolate and green tea latte, both of which I considered not making, but I actually have a few notes about each of them. So the green tea latte thing. I would take some matcha powder and those bamboo split matcha whisk things and a little bit of warm water and froth it up and then add, some foamed milk or whatever. Matcha powder makes me feel a little sick. I'm not really sure why. Something that a friend of mine came up with. This is the tea friend that's been floating around these drink conversations. She got me this mulberry leaf matcha powder that it doesn't have caffeine. It's made of a different plant, but it has that kind of creamy flavor profile that kind of makes you think like I'm drinking a delicious matcha latte. It doesn't taste the same, but it's green and it's the same texture and it's not completely dissimilar. So that's tasty. If you don't like matcha things or they make you sick like me, maybe consider picking some of that up. It's nice. This is nice now and again. It's nice with a little bit of ginger syrup as well. I liked putting a bit of ginger syrup in that. And the final one, kind of stopping on an underwhelming one, dark chocolate, hot chocolate with chocolate sauce. Big chocolate, too much. I already think hot chocolate is too much when it's made with good ingredients. That's just me. I don't love extremely rich things. So making just hot chocolate and then adding a dark chocolate sauce, like I described earlier for the bitter heart drink, was kind of too much for me. I didn't really like it. I don't know, maybe if you had a really small amount of it, it'd be all right. And that's it. After a really long parlay with a lot of very strong opinions, and hopefully some good recommendations, I would say my top three from this were chai adeni. That was the kind of chai variant thing with cardamom, cloves, cinnamon, nutmeg, but then it's just condensed milk and black tea. Again, like the tea tarik, I rolled it as well. That was really good. It's not anything crazy, but it's a nice chai variant. I enjoyed the Grinch, which was the cinnamon and ginger syrups in nice quality green tea. I thought that was surprisingly good. I didn't think I was going to like that one, but I did. And then STMJ was a big surprise. That egg and honey custard, and then you have milk and ginger in it. Again, a big surprise. I didn't think I would like that, but I really, really did. I'm definitely going to think about how to make that more makeable on like a normal day when I don't want to do a ton of dishes. If it was as easy to make as the other drinks in this list, I would cancel this parlay and say, we're talking about STMJ for an hour, you know. But I did not do that. Couple other miscellaneous notes really quick. Working with sweetened condensed milk can be kind of a pain, in my opinion. It just gets everywhere, but I think it's a very useful ingredient for a lot of these drinks. It makes a lot of the chai variants in here very quick to make. Like, you need very few ingredients and very little prep. You just make your tea and pour it on the sweetened condensed milk, and the drink is instantly done. That makes it take hardly any work. But the sweetened condensed milk itself can be kind of a pain. If you get like a squeeze bottle, you know, the ones that you might be familiar with in like fast food, or like just American restaurants in general, is where they're iconic to me. But I'm sure it's not just there. That's just where I think of them from. Those are the best. You should totally get at least one of those, maybe three, and put your syrups in them and put the condensed milk in it. You might need to be careful what, you know, size nozzle for the condensed milk, because it might clog it, but some way to make that easier to use would be a big deal for this. That would make it a significantly better experience. So if you buy anything for this project to make any of these, if you buy that Bensdorp cocoa powder, for example, buy a squeeze bottle or three. I really highly recommend that. I don't think you're going to regret doing that. You'll be excited you made a drink, and then dread and groan at needing to manage the messy ingredient you've made that's really sticky and will make your whole kitchen sticky. Don't do that. You know, buy a squeeze bottle. If you're willing to run out and get my weird cocoa powder I recommended, you're interested enough in making drinks that that's a good investment, in my opinion. So big shout out to do that. I don't know why I'm saying it like this. I've been talking for like an hour. I had a bunch of hot chocolate, so I have a bit of a sugar thing going on. And yeah, this was cool. Again, I will only rarely accept a request like this. I just felt like this was uniquely doable for my living situation. There is one last quick note. You might notice I didn't do masala chai. That's because it's so similar to a lot of other drinks that are in this project, and I have kind of had that before. I like that mix of spices. I truly have nothing to say about it, and I felt like it was better to spend that time on the Shayadeni and the Titirik, and again, there are a few other similar drinks in here. I did not talk about a few more of the drinks than I expected to. Like I said, I'd talk about some that I didn't. Galahad, I don't remember if I talked about. Or said I would. But again, a lot of these I just felt like there wasn't a whole lot to say. A lot of the milk drinks, like Lementhal, I thought about more and realized I'm not going to have anything insightful to say about. Like, it's milk with mint and lemon, like that's nice. I just don't think it's a better use of our time than talking about these drinks. And you can see some of these I actually had pretty minimal things to say about as well. So toward the end, again, I tried to go in order of what I had the most actionable things to say about to the least. And I kept some of the things like Russian tea I had a lot to say about, but I don't think it's good for the end. So I hope you don't mind that I took some serious license there to try to talk about the drinks that I felt were really noteworthy. Some takeaways for me, just very quick in the last minute, would be, yeah, I'm going to fiddle around with that lemon peel and coffee thing. I don't know what's going on there. That's weird. I really want to highlight again how it takes a lot of effort to do proper recipe development, like having an actual recipe with ratios that are usable for these drinks, and you have a reason why it is that way of doing it, like a good procedure. That is very valuable. I looked up a lot of recipes to reference for quite a few, maybe half of these drinks, and most of the recipes were kind of bad. Like in terms of usability or why they did that thing that way, it wasn't that good. There's other examples I've encountered, like making Turkish coffee, something I'm pretty interested in at the moment. A lot of procedures for making Turkish coffee do not know why you do that way, or they do know why, but they won't say why. And it took a lot of digging and experimentation to find out the actually pretty simple reasons why things are done a certain way. For example, I learned why the traditional coffee pot for Turkish coffee boiling is the shape it is, and that actually is very useful, but that was so poorly explained so many times. That was kind of shocking to me, how often they ask you to do something that will be very involved but don't explain what it does, or like if it does anything. That's really frustrating. I just wanted to shout out, I care about that. I work pretty hard on that. That is the real cost. That is why this was doable, is because I didn't do that for every single recipe, and I didn't give you an exact, recipe for everyone. If I did, this would take an insane amount of time. So anyway, I look forward to doing that for a lot of these in the future. I hope you really enjoyed it. Thank you very much.